So, what really makes the world go round? It's not some kind of magic. From your morning coffee to the price of gas, our lives are pretty much shaped by just a handful of powerful economic ideas. We're going to pull back the curtain on the 10 big principles that, well, run almost everything. The word economy can sound a little intimidating, right? But where it comes from is surprisingly simple. It's from the Greek for one who manages a household. And honestly, that's the perfect way to think about it. Just like a household has to figure out who does the dishes or who gets the last slice of pizza, a society has to manage its resources. It all really just boils down to making choices when you can't have everything.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the economics of you, the principles behind your own decisions. Then, we're going to zoom out and see how we all interact with each other. And finally, we'll tackle the big picture, the forces that shape the entire economy. Let's get right into it.
First up, the economics of you. These first four principles are really all about the logic behind the choices you make every single day, a lot of the time without even realizing you're doing it. I bet you've heard the saying, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Well, grammar aside, economists are absolutely obsessed with this phrase. And for good reason. It perfectly captures the very first, and you could argue the most important principle of economics. Principle number one is super simple. People face trade-offs. To get one thing you like, you usually have to give up something else you like. But this isn't just about what you're having for dinner. It's a huge challenge for entire societies. Think of it like a pie. There's this constant tension between efficiency, which is making the economic pie as big as possible, and equality, dividing that pie up fairly. The really tricky part is that policies designed to slice the pie more equally can sometimes, accidentally, shrink the whole pie. It's a fundamental conflict, and there is no easy answer. Okay, so if everything is a trade-off, how do you actually weigh your options? Let's take a huge decision, like going to college. What is the real cost? You might think, oh, it's tuition, fees, books, but that's not even close to the biggest part of the story. And this brings us right to principle number two. The cost of something is what you give up to get it. Economists have a name for this. They call it opportunity cost. For most college students, the single biggest cost isn't the tuition. It's the 4 years of salary they are not earning while they're in school. That money you didn't make, that's the opportunity cost. And really understanding that is the key to making way smarter decisions. Now, principle number three, it might sound kind of academic, but I promise you do it intuitively all the time. Think about it. Choices in life are rarely all or nothing. You're not deciding between, say, never eating again or eating an entire buffet. No, you're deciding, should I have one more slice of pizza? That's what economists call thinking at the margin. Here's a classic example. An airline has a 200-seat plane. Let's just say the average cost to fly one person is $500. Now the plane is about to take off with 10 empty seats, and a standby passenger walks up and offers $300 for a ticket. Should the airline sell it? Yes, absolutely. See, at this point, the average cost doesn't matter at all. The marginal cost, the cost of adding just one more passenger, is basically just a can of soda and a bag of peanuts. So as long as that $300 ticket covers that tiny extra cost, it's pure profit. Our final principle for you, the individual, is a really big one. People respond to incentives. And an incentive is just something, it could be a reward or a punishment, that makes you act a certain way. And this is the crucial part. When the costs or benefits of doing something change, people's behavior changes. It's really that simple. And incentives are just everywhere. You see in the cartoon, the son offers his dad an incentive, $5 to watch the baseball game in peace. But on a much bigger scale, when gas prices shoot up, people have a huge incentive to drive less, or maybe buy a more fuel-efficient car or take the train. This is why policymakers have to be so careful. Incentives drive everything we do, and sometimes they can have these really powerful unintended consequences. All right, so we've covered how individuals think. Now, let's zoom out a little bit. What happens when we all start interacting with each other? This is where things get really interesting. We hear about global trade all the time, and it often sounds like a competition, with winners and losers. But that's just the wrong way to look at it. Principle 5 is that trade can make everyone better off. I mean, just think about your own family. You don't grow all your own food and make your own clothes, right? Of course not. You trade with other people. And this lets everyone specialize in what they do best, which means more variety and lower costs for everybody. The exact same logic applies to countries.
And that leads us to one of the most profound ideas in all of economics. In a market economy, there's no one person in charge. You've got millions of individuals and businesses all making their own decisions, just looking out for themselves. It really sounds like it should be a recipe for total chaos. So, how does it all work?
Well, the answer came from this man, Adam Smith, way back in 1776. And he had this totally revolutionary insight into how markets actually function. Smith's brilliant idea was this: when individuals and companies interact in a market, and each one is just pursuing their own self-interest, they are often led by an invisible hand to an outcome that benefits everyone. So what is this invisible hand? It's the price system. Prices are the signals that tell producers what to make and consumers what to buy, and they coordinate this incredibly complex system without a single person having to be in charge. So if this invisible hand is so great, why do we even need the government at all? Well, because the hand isn't perfect. Principle 7 says that governments can sometimes improve what happens in the market. For one thing, the invisible hand only works if the government enforces the rules, like protecting property rights. A programmer isn't going to build a new app if she thinks everyone is just going to steal it. Governments also step in to fix what economists call market failures, things like pollution, or to try and fix major inequalities. Okay, so we've gone from you to us. Now for our final 3 principles. We're zooming way out to the 30,000-foot view to see how the entire economy works as a whole. Just look at the staggering difference in living standards around the world. I know these figures are from 2008, but the general pattern is still true today. The average person in a wealthy country earns many, many times more than the average person in a poor country. So what explains these absolutely massive differences? While the answer, according to Principle 8, really comes down to one single word: productivity. A country's standard of living depends almost entirely on how much its workers can produce. That's pretty much it. So if you want to raise living standards, the goal is always to increase productivity. And that means giving workers better tools, better education, and better technology. This cartoon perfectly captures the anxiety of principle number 9, prices rise when the government prints too much money. It's a pretty simple cause and effect, really. When a government creates huge amounts of money, the value of each dollar falls. And in extreme cases, this leads to what we call hyperinflation, where your money becomes less valuable literally by the minute. And that brings us to our final and maybe our most controversial principle. In the short run, society faces a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Generally, policies that boost the economy to lower unemployment can also cause prices to go up. And on the flip side, policies designed to fight inflation can slow the economy down and lead to job losses. It is a constant, difficult balancing act for policymakers. And there you have it, 10 big ideas, broken down into 3 parts: how you decide things, how we all interact, and how it all works. From the little choices you make every day to the giant global economy, these principles are basically the fundamental building blocks for understanding our world. So we're going to leave you with a little bit of a challenge. Now that you have this toolkit, what are you going to see differently as you go about your day to day? Look for these ideas in action. What trade-offs do you see other people making? What incentives are shaping their behavior? What are the invisible economic forces that are running the world right there in front of you?